Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good evening this evening. Just thought I would jump in here. I was not planning on making a video tonight, but I was sort of compelled to. Let me bring that down a little bit here. I was sort of compelled to. I've been watching some videos of a presidential candidate in 2024. Yes, he's GOP, but he's not Donald Trump. He's not Rick DeSantis. He's not like, Carrie Lake or whoever. He's like a completely different fellow that when I talked to some people earlier tonight, they never heard of him. Most likely because the mainstream media is not covering him because he's so articulate, so full of ideas. He's actually a millennial. So they have not been, and he's brown. He's Indian, an Indian guy. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek. I mean, I guess sort of like Obama, just President Vivek or Ramaswamy, one of the two. Vivek's a little catchier. Viva Vivek. Long live Vivek. Young guy, cool guy. So I'm going to switch over to my browser here. I'm going to play like a little bit of a speech or whatever that he gave, just to give you a little taste of his style and his beliefs and everything. So let me switch over to that here. I got it. Believe it or not, it was on Fox News Sunday a couple weeks ago or whatever. I don't know. A month ago. But he's been doing a lot of interviews with I think he was on Joe Rogan. He was on the Tim Pool podcast a couple weeks ago. So he has been making his rounds, but not necessarily in the mainstream media circles. He's doing his best to sort of reach out directly to we, the people, outside of the mainstream media. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and comment below, like, subscribe, whatever. But he sounds like a really unifying type guy. So here we go.
We turn now to another 24 Republican contender, Vivek Ramaswamy, the biotech entrepreneur and political rookie. He made a surprising presidential bid back in February, calling himself an outsider. Now he's diving headfirst into Republican culture wars and says it's time to rethink a number of federal agencies. But Ramaswamy, like other GOP candidates, trails the undisputed Republican frontrunner, former President Trump. Ramaswamy has been a vocal defender of President Trump. Joins us now to discuss his campaign and that pledge to pardon the former president. Vivek Ramaswamy, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Yeah, the full screen didn't work out.
Okay, so you have said you would pardon the president. You've asked others to join and do the same. You've talked about this being a political indictment, political in nature, and you've talked about dismantling institutions wholesale, like the FBI. The New York Times, which was covering you out in Iowa, says this is what the question becomes for many people. Are Republicans like Mr. Ramaswamy risking the stability of the country for their own political fortunes? Some fear that the aggressive rhetoric he and other Republicans regularly use, both in defense of Mr. Trump and in attacking the justice system, could cause lasting damage. Do you acknowledge that possibility? Are you worried about it?
Look, I think I'm even more worried, Shannon, about the opposite possibility, which is when the Department of Justice weaponizes police force against people based on their political viewpoints. That already undermines trust in the justice system. So I actually think it's important for leaders, including like me, to stand up and call that out unsparingly. I actually think that helps build up trust in our institutions, to say that, you know what, it doesn't have to stay this way. So under my watch, we'll make sure the FBI, first of all, doesn't exist as an institution. In the local level, you have local prosecutors and local police. At the federal level, you have U.S. Marshals and the Department of Justice. But when you have large bureaucracies that sit in between, that's a formula for corruption. And whether it was that FBI going after Martin Luther King Jr., threatening him to commit suicide 60 years ago, or whether it's after going after political conservatives like President Trump today, that's not justice. And I really would have a much easier time, frankly, in this election if President Trump weren't in the race. So this isn't about my political calculus. This is about standing up for principles over politics, and I actually think that helps build trust in our institutions. That's why I'm speaking out.
Both you and the president have embraced this label or raised some eyebrows about it, American nationalist or nationalist. You've said you get that that might be uncomfortable for some people. It might turn off some voters. So why embrace it? And what does it mean to you?
To me, nationalism doesn't have to be a bad word. It means we stand for the ideals that set this nation into motion 250 years ago. Meritocracy, the pursuit of excellence, the rule of law, free speech and open debate, self-governance. These were the values that won the American Revolution, Shannon. And I think we need to be proud of these ideals again. Young Americans across this country are no longer proud to be American. I am. And as the first millennial ever to run for president as a Republican, I think it is part of my responsibility to revive that civic pride in the next generation. And the beautiful thing about America is that we're not a country founded on an ethnicity or on a single language or a monarch. We're a nation founded on a set of ideals that brought together a divided group of people 250 years ago. I think those ideals can still bring together a divided group of people today. That's what I'm running to lead.
Not talking about a national divorce, not talking about anything. He wants to bring people together, you know. He wants to bring people together. He's a young guy, good ideas, so on and so forth. Let me let it continue playing here. He speaks better for himself than I can for him.
And I expect we can, Shannon. That's why I'm in this race.
All right, let's talk about why you're in the race, because you're sitting at an average of 2.4% at Real Clear Politics polling. The average is there. And the folks over at National Review are not convinced you're actually running for president. They write this: like Mitt Romney, Ramaswamy speaks conservatism as a second language. And like Mitt Romney, he doesn't quite know it. Ramaswamy isn't really running for president. He's building a ginormous mailing list. The writer argues that running and losing can actually be very lucrative. TV and radio contracts, book deals, speaking fees. They think that's what you're about.
That's laughable, Shannon. Actually, you know what I did? I did not take a tin can and ask a bunch of donors with hat in hand for permission to run. I've lived the full arc of the American dream. I'm proud of that. But I've put over $10 million of my hard-earned money. We're going to put more of that into this campaign. So the idea that this is profitable for me is actually a joke. The reality is you make these sacrifices because we care about something greater. That is our country. I think we are in the middle of a national identity crisis, where if you ask most people my age and even younger, what does it mean to be an American? You get a blank stare in response. I think that's a problem. I think too long the conservative movement, we have been running from something. I am in this race to start leading us to something, to our vision of what it actually means to be an American today, to speak the hard truths that others in the Democratic Party and even others in the Republican Party are afraid to speak out loud. There are two genders. God is real. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. That last one actually got me censored.
He got censored. He got censored for talking about fossil fuels and how they are a requirement. I mean, if you go back 2 winters ago, like in Texas, everybody makes fun of Texas because like their windmills like froze and the solar power, you know, due to the snowstorm and everything wasn't working. Now, everybody that I've seen on the left is making fun of Texas because Texas actually tried to embrace renewable energy, solar, wind, and so on, and it didn't work. So people on the left are making fun of that. The ones who are touting solar energy and touting wind energy. And if Texas would not have shut down so many of the refineries and the energy generation plants that they did, and they would have had those up and running, then Texas would have never lost power. You know, it wasn't an overall power issue. It was just like they didn't have enough power. And I will bash on Texas a little bit because in some of the cities that I remember seeing during that time, they had these skyscrapers in the downtown of the cities lit up. Nobody was in them. They were just empty offices, empty buildings at the middle of the night. And they had those buildings lit up while they were at the same time cutting power to other Texans and other people. And so I'm not taking either side. I'm just saying wind and solar are not enough. We still need fossil. We still need the fossil power, the fossil energies, natural gas, oil, coal. The left has been very adamant about phasing those out, but you just can't phase them out overnight. They have to be phased out slowly. The generation of the other ones have to be brought up. And then one that has gotten a bad rap over the years is nuclear power. You know, because of Chernobyl and the TV show that came out about that on HBO and Fukushima back in like 2011, 2012, whenever Fukushima happened, 2013, I don't remember. I remember watching it live on TV as it happened. I was in my office and it was early in the morning here. And I remember seeing the tsunami wash in and wipe out, you know, Fukushima proper, the city itself. And then the nuclear power plant went down and everything. But you can't, just because of a couple of disasters, it really comes down to 3 nuclear disasters. It was Chernobyl, and that was a Russian thing, and they were doing a test on the system, and during like a test shutdown procedure, the meters were off, and they didn't do it right, and Chernobyl happened. I'm not going to get into details, but Chernobyl happened. With the Japanese, with Fukushima, the tsunami happened. A totally unexpected, massive tsunami came in, hit the plant, knocked out their fail-safe mechanisms and so on, and Fukushima happened. Again, not going to get into details. And then if you go back further, you have like 3 Mile Island, you know, the American nuclear disaster or whatever. You have that. And I don't know the details of that, so I'm not going to speak about it. But it's pretty much 3 major ones. But really, I mean, outside of the people in the immediate areas of those, of Fukushima, Chernobyl, and 3 Mile Island, it really didn't have an effect on the bigger world as a whole. It didn't release a ton of carbon. It didn't, you know, have a major effect on the planet. But regardless, nuclear power is still the most clean, efficient, and best like power source we have. You know, like if the Yellowstone Plateau blows up, if a volcano happens and like the sun's blocked out for years, nuclear is still going to work. Whereas wind might work if it's like a bad environment and like wind's blowing, but it's still going to be difficult for maintenance people to get out there and in like a post-apocalyptic situation to repair those devices. Solar's not going to work because the sun's blotted out by the Yellowstone Plateau explosion or whatever. Like if a volcano blows up and blots out the sun, or if we have nuclear war, God forbid, you know, due to like us being on the edge of World War III right now, if we have a nuclear disaster, solar's not going to work. Wind may not work or may not be reliable, but the one that is nuclear. So I'm going to let this continue playing. I'm getting off on a tangent here, so I'm going to let Ramaswamy keep speaking here. He's a cool dude.
On Microsoft-owned LinkedIn. But I do think it's going to take an outsider, not somebody who grew up in the political system, but a true outsider to get the job done. That was Trump in 2015. But I'll tell you this, Shannon, I am polling a little bit ahead of where Trump was in June of 2015. The debate stage is going to be a crucial next step, and I'm confident we're going to not only win the election, but do it in a landslide like what Reagan did in 1980. And I think that's the single most unifying thing we can deliver for the country.
You do talk a lot about being an outsider. You're new to this political game. One of your most ambitious desires is to dismantle part of Washington. You talked about the FBI earlier. You talk about this with respect to federal agencies, the administrative state. Washington Post, George Will writes a piece over there saying Ramaswamy, who has not encountered many problems that are impervious to his charisma and certitude, believes that a forcefully expressed presidential vision can conquer Washington's viscosity. When he has lived longer, he will know better. Now, even President Trump talked about how hard it was to, quote, drain the swamp, the agencies here, the infrastructure, the bureaucracies. What makes you better equipped?
So, look, Shannon, I bring a unique combination of, yes, somebody who is an outsider who's had success in business, but with a deep understanding of the Constitution and statutory authority to do it. If I may say this, I think I'm the presidential candidate in the last 30 years who has the best understanding of the legal basis to actually shut down the administrative state. 5 U.S.C. 3302 empowers the U.S. president to set the regulations governing the Office of Personnel Management, setting the rules of people who work in the civil service departments of that federal bureaucracy. So if there's one thing I can promise, by January 2033, when I'm leaving office, the top thing domestically that I'll say we will have done is by the time I'm done, we will have, again, 3 branches of government in the U.S., not 4, that will shut down the regulatory state. And Shannon, that's one of the keys to actually unlocking the economy itself. We're slated to grow at less than 1% GDP growth this year. We've grown at over 4% for most of our national history. And the administrative state, the way it shackles the U.S. energy sector, the way it pays people to stay at home instead of to go back to work, this is a big part of the problem. And I understand this deeply on constitutional grounds.
Okay.
Yeah, he talks about, people going back to work, and that's a big thing. I was just talking to 1 or 2 people tonight, and they want to work remote, and that's fine. I work remote. But really what's going to, sort of jumpstart the economy is people actually getting back to work, going into a job, being around the other people and everything. And, working remote is nice and everything, and it's good for certain fields, certain people. But for the vast majority of people out there who have been, due to like the COVID thing, we're allowed to work remote. It's not good for every industry. It's not positive for every industry. And like Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX, he's wanting people to come back. You need to be there. You need to be like engaged with your job. But so that's a little bit probably what he's getting at there a little bit. So let me let this finish out and then I'll come back in here. So
I believe that if an agency should not exist, it deserves to be shut down.
I will expect to cover some of these fights in the Supreme Court if you go that route with some of these federal agencies and employees. Very quickly before we go, I want to ask you about Mark Cuban's comment. You wrote a book called Woke Inc. You think it's bad for corporate America. He says it's actually good business and people are looking ahead to their customers of the future. Quick comment from you.
My view is that businesses have a purpose. It is to provide products and services to customers who actually need them, and yes, to make a profit unapologetically. And when those businesses wade into social disputes, not only is that often bad for business, just look at what happened to Bud Light, look at what's happening to Target, but more importantly, it's bad for our civic culture in our country. Because what we need is apolitical spaces that bring people together, whether they're black or white, or Democrat or Republican. The private sector, the sports stadiums of this country, the labs of this country, that's where Americans unite regardless of their partisan or identitarian affiliations. And so I think woke capitalism is bad for capitalism, but it's also bad for American democracy. Okay. That's why I've been leading the crusade against it for the last several years, and that's what I'm taking all the way to the White House.
All right, we'll put you and Mark Cuban on opposite sides of that conversation. Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you so much.
So there you go. Now you know why I like Vivek Ramaswamy. And I've watched many different interviews with him. Tim Pool, he was on Tim Pool's podcast, Timcast IRL. I believe he was on Joe Rogan a couple weeks ago. Valuetainment with David Bet David or whatever. I can't remember his name, but Valuetainment. They actually did a town hall together, which the mainstream media still has not done for Vivek. They don't want his word getting out there. I mean, Fox, yeah, they covered him, but you hear how fast they talked and they just sort of rushed through it. But they haven't really had a good conversation so far. I know it's still early in the election season, so maybe they will. And as maybe DeSantis drops out and Vivek becomes number 2, maybe that'll change. I'm hoping it will. But I guess my reason for, let me switch back to full here. Sort of my reason for doing this video in the first place is I guess it's probably been about 20, 30 minutes ago now. I actually went to Vivek Ramaswamy's website, checked over, his stances on everything, and I decided to make a donation. And so I filled out the form, and I chose to donate like $200 to Vivek, to his campaign. And it got declined by my credit card company, Capital One. That's my main credit card that I use. And it popped up on my phone and said that it got declined, but we approve that. So I tried it a second time, because sometimes when you do it a second time, it goes through and approves it. But it didn't. It declined me again. And then they wanted me to call the fundraising company, and Capital One did give me the phone number to the fundraising company, but it's an automated system, and there's no people there at this time of the night, which I don't blame them or whatever. So I could not get my problem resolved tonight. I hope to tomorrow. I hope that I can, sometime during business hours tomorrow, I can call the actual company and say, hey, did you see my donation come in, my $200? But I'm pretty disappointed. And the conspiracy side of me wants to say that, the leadership of Capital One declined it on purpose, just to discourage me from trying it again, to discourage me from calling Vivek's fundraising company, to discourage me from donating to the political candidate of my choice. It goes back to like big establishment, and they're like, they don't want people to like donate to the side that they don't agree with. I'm sure if I went to Biden's website, if I would have put my credit card in there, and I may actually do that after this podcast. I may go to Biden's website, donate it like the same amount, $200, and then see if they accept it the first time or not. And if they do, then I know there's a problem. Because if I donate to Biden and it goes right through, and I donate to Vivek, who's a Indian minority conservative candidate, and they decline him, but they don't decline this old white guy who's a frickin' racist, asshole, liar. He's been that his entire career, his entire life. If they don't decline Biden, but they don't accept Vivek, then that's bullshit. That's clear election interference. So I'm gonna post another one after I call the credit card or the Vivek's Ramaswamy's company tomorrow. I'm gonna follow up, do another video on this. I may or may not. I don't even know if I want to try to donate to Biden, because sure, after I do it, then I can say, hey, I could call him up and say, hey, I didn't want to donate to Biden. I was just kidding. But I really meant to donate to Vivek. And before this, the only person I've ever donated to before this was good old Herman Cain. I think he died during the COVID season, 2021 maybe. I think it was like a Trump rally. Got COVID supposedly or whatever. I'm not going to get into that either, but supposedly he got COVID and died. He was an old dude though, so yeah. So but it just burns me that I'm right now at this moment I'm excited about Vivek Ramaswamy, President Vivek. Viva Vivek. And I tried to donate for the first time since before Trump, and I get declined. So, yeah, that's that. So everybody, other than that, I'll follow up here. Everybody have a good night, and peace out.